officially turned around, guys. We are back, baby. We are back.
We're back.
Yeah.
Classic. We are back.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Jenks and Ned podcast. As you can tell, instead of Hammer, we have Ned, friend of the podcast. He's been on a couple times. Last year's the biggest episode we had almost was when he came on and talked, I believe it was receivers and then the Commanders' future with Sam Howell. So we all saw how that worked out. And now week 1 is finally here for the NFL season. And in today's episode, we're just going to be breaking down each of our picks for each game, and we'll get right into it. All right, Ned. So starting off, as you know, we have the game of the week, in my opinion, with the Ravens taking on the Chiefs in Kansas City. I want to hear your thoughts here. First, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm super excited to watch Mahomes, with new weapons and Xavier Worthy. I'm excited to watch how they scheme those guys in. This is, the easy choice here, but I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. I think they probably win a close one. Lamar Jackson is no slouch. He won an MVP last year. But I think the Chiefs just eck him out by a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go opposite of you here, Ned. I like you picking the Chiefs because there's a little bit of diversity here. But I'm going to go the Ravens. They did lose their defensive coordinator, but I think, Lamar Jackson adding Derrick Henry, and I think that defense is still going to be pretty solid. If they are able to just kind of contain Patrick Mahomes for week 1, I feel like the Chiefs won't be firing on all cylinders yet. They're kind of getting a hold of everything. Xavier Worthy obviously brings something new to the table for the Chiefs, a burner on the outside that they hope can kind of get out of press and things like that. I think the Ravens will try to be game planning is get their hands on Worthy to shut them down. So I think the Ravens it'll be a close one, but I'm going to pick the Ravens here.
Okay. Fair enough. I hear you. I'm excited for Derrick Henry as well. I think he's going to bring a new dimension to the offense, especially in the red zone.
Yeah, RPOs in the red zone now. You kind of have to actually across the whole field. You got to worry about Lamar Jackson keeping it or giving it off to Derrick Henry on the inside. It's going to be dangerous.
Absolutely.
Next, you got the first Brazil game in NFL history. We got the Packers taking on the Eagles. 2 green teams taking on the Brazil. It's a new international game for the NFL. So, Ned, what are your thoughts on this one?
This is an interesting one. I think it's definitely a tough pick, given that, the Eagles had this horrendous end to the year. Objectively, a very bad ending. They weren't playing on offense. There were rumors swirling, sort of about the hierarchy within the locker room, within the organization overall with the head coach. And so I think, it's one of those tough things to see. All right, well, are they going to come out here and look like a team that added a Saquon Barkley, that added a Jahan Dotson, which, I don't know if Jahan Dotson is going to be as good for them as social media makes that addition out to be. But I still think they're going to be good. However, I think the Packers ended the year so strong last year. I think Jordan Love came on. I think Jordan Love, through the playoffs, played like a top 3 quarterback. And that's not to say that that's what he is right now. I'm not saying that that's how good he is currently. But the last time Jordan Love was playing football, he was playing elite football.
Yeah.
And I think that could totally continue for him, especially given that he's retained pretty much all of his weapons here. And, with the addition of Josh Jacobs, I know they lost Aaron Jones. But I think I'm going to take the Packers in this one.
Okay. Yeah, I was leaning Packers. And then I don't know. I just kind of think Eagles, they're going to be angry with the finish of last season. And they're going to be kind of have a fire under their ass for this game, as well as Saquon coming over.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick the Eagles here. So we're splitting the first 2 games. I like it. I was tempted to pick the Packers. I like what you said about Jordan Love, how he finished the last season. Obviously, Jordan's a baller. And I think he's gonna show up. I love the receiver core. But for some reason, I like this Eagles defense coming out and just getting them enough. I will note this as well. The Packers had 2 kickers that they were battling all of camp.
Yep.
Last second, cut both kickers, sign someone new. If this game is close, I could see the Packers possibly missing the game-winning field goal and causing them to lose this game. So I'm going to go Eagles.
Really strong prediction. I like that.
Yeah, that one's
cool.
A little bit of a thought process behind that one. Anyways.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, next we got the first Sunday game of the week. The Steelers taking on the Falcons in Atlanta. A bunch of new additions to Atlanta. What are your thoughts, Ned, in this game?
Yeah, you're gonna hate to hear this, but I think the Falcons are gonna come out of the gate pretty strong here. I'm a fan of Kirk Cousins. I have been, since his career started. Started in Washington. He started with my team, and I think he's just very consistent overall. I think more than talk about the Falcons additions and like what their offense is going to be with Kirk Cousins, and Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan Robinson coming into his second year. Obviously, I think what you have to acknowledge is like the uncertainty in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They don't feel like they have a very strong identity. They have 2 new quarterbacks. Russell Wilson's, I'm pretty sure if he hasn't already been the name of the starter, I'm pretty confident that Russell Wilson's going to be the starter. Nevertheless, Mike Tomlin delays this decision until the end of the preseason, despite Russell Wilson taking pretty much all of the reps with the ones for the entire preseason. And so I never really understood, his lack of clarity there. And overall, I'm just not a huge fan of the Steelers this year in terms of their offense specifically. And so I'm going to go ahead and take the Falcons here.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me too because you know me, I despise the Falcons with all my mind, heart, and soul. But the Falcons here, they have the better team. Like you said, the Steelers, just that offense, I'm not a fan of. I'm not in love with that. So I think and they went from Matt Canada to Arthur Smith, correct? If I'm not wrong.
It's the Arthur Smith Bowl.
Yeah, it's why are you adding the guy that got fired from Atlanta for not having a good offense and bringing him into that offense already? So I'm not a fan of the Steelers. I'm going to go the Falcons as well, reluctantly.
Okay. Cool.
Next, we got the Little Birds, the Cardinals, taking on the Bills in Buffalo. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this one, Ned?
I think everyone, the common rhetoric, or at least, I had a conversation with somebody about this earlier today, and they said the Bills got so much worse. They lost Stephon Diggs. Matt Milano's out with injury. But listen, I feel like people need to acknowledge, firstly, what the Bills were doing down the stretch last year, and that is not throwing the ball to Stephon Diggs. They were throwing the ball to Khalil Shakir. They were throwing the ball to Dalton Kincaid. And they went out and got Curtis Samuel. They went out and got Keon Coleman. I understand they also lost Gabe Davis as well as Stephon Diggs. But I think they did enough where they sort of like, they sort of like re-upped on this group. They brought in other guys. I really like the addition of Curtis Samuel specifically. I really think Curtis Samuel is a sleeper this year. I think he is a receiver he's really good when you use him creatively, almost like a Deebo Samuel type of player. Yeah. And something he's lacked his whole career is really consistent quarterback play. I mean, he went from not a great situation in Carolina, sort of post Cam Newton, to not really a great situation in Washington. Carson Wentz was his quarterback his first year in Washington. And then you had some Taylor Heineke, and then you had some Sam Howell. And, I know I came on here and I sung Sam Howell's praises last year. But he didn't play great down the stretch, So I really think that Curtis Samuel is going to benefit from good quarterback play. I know I went off a massive tangent here. I really like the Bills in this matchup, though.
No, I agree with you here wholeheartedly. The Bills, they also, Josh Allen, people are saying the Bills got this much worse. You have Josh Allen, probably the second best quarterback in the league, in my opinion, at least. I know a lot of people will argue that, but the talent he brings to the table will level up your team exponentially. And as well as Khalil Shakir, I love how you mentioned him. I think he's going to have a really big year. I've been picking him in a lot of fantasy leagues, like really late in drafts, just because.
Yeah, I've got him in one.
Yeah, so I love that you mentioned that. I'm going to go the Bills here as well.
Yeah, cool.
Next, we got the Titans taking on the Bears. Caleb Williams' debut game, as well as Will Levis's second season debut. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is a really interesting game. I think of the games we've talked about so far, I am least certain about this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think some might look at the Bears and say, this is the most improved team in the NFL. Massive additions at wide receiver. You obviously have a significant difference at quarterback. Made additions on defense. However, I don't know. I think this could be an upset game. I do like Will Levis as a breakout candidate this year, simply because he's not really being talked about enough. And I think that the Titans, they've done some good things. They put some players around him. They brought in Tony Pollard. Obviously, you lost Derrick Henry, but you brought in Tony Pollard. You also brought in Calvin Ridley. And then you're going to have a full year of DeAndre Hopkins. Now, I'm not saying that I think the Titans are going to be great this year. I think the Titans could really surprise in this game. I like the Titans just by a little bit. I think that's definitely not the consensus pick, but I think there could be upset potential here in week 1.
Awesome. I like it. Ned's underdog pick of the week right here is the Titans. Yeah. Okay. I like it. I'm going to go a little bit different. I do love your support with Will Levis and the Titans. I think their running game is going to be very good as compared to what they're talking. Like no one's talking about the running game, but Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears is going to be a solid running back room for the Titans. And I think if their offensive line is good, they're going to have a good running season. So I like that you talked about that a little bit, their offense wise at least. I'm going to go with the Bears here just because I think Caleb Williams, the hype in Chicago, the Bears fans are going to be rocking the stadium. So I'm going to go with the Bears for my pick. But you brought a lot of good information to the table with the Titans there.
Thank you.
Next, we got the Patriots taking on the Bengals. I feel like this is going to be a short but sweet pick. Ned, who you got?
Yeah, massive surprise here. I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Patriots are pretty poorly positioned this year. I actually, I went to the Commanders-Patriots last preseason game, got a really good look at the Patriots. Didn't get a good look at the Commanders because I think they sat 34 players, if I'm remembering that number correctly. Yeah. So pretty much everyone in the two deep did not play. But I got a really good look at Drake May. I got a really good look at the offensive line, and I didn't love what I saw. It's really – from the offensive line, I think there was like a lot of procedural penalties. They had, several illegal formations because the tackles weren't lining up correctly. They had a couple of holding penalties. And then in addition to that, they just weren't holding up. Now you're putting Jacoby Brissett back there to start the year. You're sort of saving Drake May. I understand they have a very tough opening start to the schedule, but I think the Patriots are definitely going to struggle a little bit this year.
Yeah.
I'm not going to question Gerard Mayo yet. I'm not going to say, I'm not like what I'm seeing with him. He hasn't coached an NFL game yet. But it was a little bit alarming to see, the first offense play that entire half pretty much versus guys who are trying to make the roster. And you're having, 3 illegal formations, 2 holding calls, and your starting quarterback takes a massive sack in the first drive and gets hurt. So, definitely taking the Bengals here and worried about the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Bengals as well. I talked about the Patriots being probably one of the top 3 worst teams in the league this year. And I think that comes with growing pains at quarterback and the coaching as well is a little bit strange. Just like you're saying, Jacoby Brissett's the best quarterback on the team, things like that. When there's been other instances, like in the preseason, Drake May did have some really good plays, so people were hyping that up. But I think what you said just about Gerard Mayo, kind of letting him see what happens for a couple games and then go from there. We'll see what the Patriots are all about this year. Next, we got an in-division game that's a pretty solid matchup here. We got the Texans taking on the Colts in Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson looking to come back from injury and ball out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the Texans are going to roll them. I am a big believer in C.J. Stroud. I think the addition of Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon, just giving him 2 really solid vets in the offense, who I think are still, maybe they're a little bit past their prime in their NFL careers, but still guys who are like plus starters. Like these guys are good in the NFL still. I think you're pairing them, and I think the Texans have, 3 guys who could be number 1 receivers in, Diggs, Dell, and Nico Collins. So, and this isn't, to sort of give the Colts the short end of the stick here, but I'm not entirely sold on Anthony Richardson as a quarterback. I understand he is, really like a generational athlete. He's, just given like his size and his speed and, his arm strength, but definitely not sold him as a passer. I didn't really love his arm angles this preseason. But nevertheless, I am excited to watch this game. I think this is definitely one of the better games in the week 1 slate, but I have the Texans coming out on top.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. I like the Texans. I think the Colts, Anthony Richardson, yes, he has boomer bust. He's very much a boomer bust quarterback. But in my opinion here, his fundamentals just aren't ready yet for success in a big game like this against a good defense. I think their defense is going to be improved this season. I think Danielle Hunter is going to be a big playmaker for them on the defensive side of the ball. But I don't know, his footwork, things like that, just led to some errant passes, and I didn't love it. So I'm going to go the Texans here as well.
All right, cool.
Next, we got the Jaguars taking on the Dolphins. Another game where kind of the quarterback is the focus for both teams. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Dolphins here just based on preparation and how well the Dolphins usually come out. They tend to come out pretty hot in their first couple games. And I really love the way, Mike McDaniel schemes up his game plans, given the defense he's going to play. This is one of those things too. I wasn't trying to slight the Colts. I'm not trying to slight the Jags. I think the Jaguars are going to be pretty good this year. I think Trevor Lawrence is really well positioned to take another step. But I think that Miami offense is so efficient and they're healthy right now. And I think that Miami is going to go ahead and take this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the Dolphins as well. They got a lot of weapons. McDaniel knows how to find each weapon. He knows how to coach up for all of them. I mean, we saw it last year with the cheat motion. A
Yeah.
lot of teams started to adapt to that as well.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go the Dolphins as well.
Sweet.
Next, we got the Panthers taking on the Saints. I'll be at this game. I'm excited
right.
for it. Not exactly the most exciting game of the week, but the
Yeah.
Saints debut game. Derek Carr looking to regain the trust of the Saints fans. What are your thoughts, Ned?
Yeah, I mean, if there was ever a game that I was not going to watch, it would probably be this one.
Yeah.
Two teams that are not really well positioned, I think, to like win this year. And I don't think this is, your guys' year, Grayson. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. I also don't think this is the Panthers' year. I think this is really a pick 'em. For the sake of not starting an argument with you, I'll go with the Saints for this pick. But also, I do think that like Derek Carr is somewhat overhated at this point. I think that the people who are calling for Rattler right now, I think, are being a little bit ridiculous, maybe. And that's not to say that it's not going to be appropriate to slot Spencer Rattler in there at some point, but to call for Derek Carr's job now before the season has even started doesn't make that much sense to me.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the irrationality of Saints fans out there.
Yeah.
He definitely did, like Derek Carr deserves to start the season and play as many games. I think he deserves to play the whole year. I think Rattler needs to sit for a year before he kind of starts. That's kind of where I'm at for him. And then he can be put in as starter. Whatever you want to do after that, I don't care. But I think the Panthers, like you said, they might improve a few games this year, but I don't really see them doing much. They added, Deontay Johnson and a couple other good rookies, but nothing crazy for them to have instant success this year. I think the Saints beat them by maybe a touchdown or two and just kind of a non-exciting game that I'm still excited to be at just because it's kickoff. Next, we got the Vikings taking on the Giants. If anything, this game might be worse than the last. Giants, Daniel Jones, worst quarterback in the league, possibly starting-wise, and the Vikings with Sam Darnold, but still having Justin Jefferson. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think the Vikings are going to walk away with this one for a win. I really like Kevin O'Connell and what he's been able to do in the absence of a quarterback. We forget so quickly that the Vikings route were without Kirk Cousins for like half the year last year. And Justin Jefferson, and they weren't, Super Bowl contenders at that point, but they weren't, they were competing in football games. And I think Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison probably make up a top 10-ish wide receiver duo in the NFL. I think Addison had a pretty strong year last year, and I think he's going to take another step this year. And again, Justin Jefferson, one of those guys who's, dare I say, quarterback proof, where he's almost going to be good regardless who plays quarterback. So, I think those two things. And I think Sam Darnold will have a better year than people are expecting. I think he's going to be closer to serviceable than people realize. And I think, Vikings, they might say, oh, this is a throwaway year. We want to, win 3 games to get another top 5 pick this year. I think the Vikings are probably going to go closer a little bit to like maybe 500 or a bit below. So, I like the Vikings here in week 1.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'm going to go the Vikings as well. I'm really just not a fan of the Giants at all this year. I don't think they have much going for them at all. I know KO is going to be pissed at us for this discussion, but I think the Vikings, like you said, Justin Jefferson's quarterback proof. If you can give him the ball, throw it up to him, he's gonna come down with it most of the time. So I like the Vikings here. Aaron Jones is coming over. I think he might add a little bit of a spark, nothing crazy, but definitely better than the running backs they had previous and last year. So I'm gonna go the Vikings here as well. Next, we got the Raiders taking on the Chargers, another divisional game, another unexciting game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, people are hating on this game, and I get it. The Raiders are not an exciting football. They're not, so fun to watch at this point in time, given, the sort of lack of an identity at quarterback. Devontae Adams, probably their best offensive weapon, and he is aging. But, there's a lot to be excited about in this game. You have Justin Herbert playing football. Justin Herbert is one of the most exciting players in the NFL. I think that, there's a wideout who's going to emerge for him who hasn't really played so great in previous years. I'm not talking about Quentin Johnson. I'm talking about Josh Palmer. I think Josh Palmer is going to emerge as a strong wide receiver 1 for Justin Herbert this year. In addition, I'm really excited to watch Brock Bowers as well. I think he's a great football player. I thought he was a steal when they drafted him. So, I'm excited to watch this game. I think the Chargers are going to eke it out really only because they have superior quarterback play. I don't really trust Gardner Minshew at this point in time. But then again, I will double back and say that I think this is going to be a tight one. I think the Raiders could also pull this one out. So I'm going Chargers, but I think the Raiders could pull an upset here.
Yeah, I like I like your thoughts. I'm gonna go with the Raiders here. I will go opposite you, so we have another little bit of difference here. But I think, like you said, Brock Bowers was really a steal of the draft, and I think no one's talking about it as much as they should. Obviously, Gardner Minshew's the quarterback. He gets a lot of hate, but he brought the Colts almost to the playoffs last season after Anthony Richardson left. Obviously, the running back dropped the pass, and that's kind of what lost in the year. It wasn't really Gardner Minshew's fault in the end of that game. But I think, Gardner Minshew with Devontae Adams, Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers, as well as what's his face, other receiver. I'm blanking. I had him on my dynasty team. Yeah, Jacoby Myers. That's if there's anything for a quarterback to kind of step into, that's not the best quarterback in the league. That's a solid place to be. I'm interested how they scheme with those two tight ends drafted back-to-back years, what they do for them. But I like the Raiders here, as well as Zamir White. I think he's kind of getting slept on. So I'm interested to see what he does.
Sure.
Next, we got the Broncos and Bo Nix's debut game taking on the Seahawks. Ned, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so I'm going to have the rookie quarterbacks going, falling to 0-2 here. And, it's not a knock against Bo Nix. It's a long NFL season. We're talking about guys playing their first NFL game.
Yeah.
And I do think the Seahawks team is better than people give them credit for. I think they have a really great receiver group. I think Geno Smith has played really consistently these past few years. And I'm just excited, watch him throwing the ball to DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and honestly, I should have said this guy before Tyler Lockett, but Jackson Smith and Najigba, who's played really well. And I'm really excited to see, an energized Seahawks team under new leadership. I think, things that kind of sleepy under Pete Carroll, the play calling was really predictable. And so I'm super excited to see them led by Mike McDonald. And I think the Seahawks are going to go ahead and start 1-0 here under him.
Yeah, I think they're trying to build something similar to the Legion of Boom a few years ago on the defensive side, at least with McDonald. That's going to be a defensive-focused team with I would say, an average offense. I think that's going to be their goal this season. So I'm interested to see what goes on there. It's going to be my upset pick of the week, though. I'm going to go the Broncos coming in. Sean Payton, Bo Nix. Obviously, Bo Nix, debut game as a rookie, it could go very, very poorly. It could go terribly wrong. I could be completely wrong about this pick, but I have some hope in what they're doing over there. I think Sean Payton is scheming this team for Bo Nix to allow him to succeed. So I'm going to pick the Broncos here. I will say as well, you mentioned how rookie quarterbacks, they're getting thrown into kind of these games just day one, first season in. Like Tom Brady even talked about it. The fact that these rookie quarterbacks are just being thrown in as starters right away and expected to succeed with all this pressure is a tough spot for the NFL to be in right now. But the quarterback talent in the league is probably the lowest it's been in a while. There's obviously the top 10, 15 guys, and then there's a pretty big drop off after that.
Absolutely.
To mention. Next, we got the Cowboys taking on the Browns. I believe Tom Brady's calling this game. So this is an interesting one to listen to for everyone out there. Ned, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think this is a tough one. I think these are two good football teams. I think the Cowboys had a very quiet offseason. They didn't really sign anybody. They didn't make any splash sort of plays in free agency, so to speak. And for the Browns, sort of a similar stream of news. I think the biggest move is probably trading for Jerry Jeudy and getting him as their third wideout, which, by the way, rounds out a pretty good wideout room. I think anybody who studies the position of wide receiver knows how good Amari Cooper is and that he's a bona fide number one guy. But ultimately, I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to come out here, they're going to start hot, and they're going to get to 1-0. I think what Dak and CD have is pretty special right now, and very few in the NFL are going to be able to replicate it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you here. I'm going to go with the Cowboys as well. I think the Browns, yes, they have a very solid receiver room now. It's nothing crazy, but Amari Cooper kind of started showing signs of life last year. They weren't really giving him the ball until the end of the season, which didn't really make sense. David Njoku also started coming alive. Nick Chubb, though, was out until probably halfway through the season. And Deshaun Watson did not play at all during the preseason, which didn't make a lot of sense considering he was out last year at the end of the season with injury. So everyone thought, get him some snaps, get him acclimated again before throwing him into week one against the Cowboys with a solid defense and obviously Micah Parsons. So I'm going to do the Cowboys here as well. Ned, we got your team coming up here with the Commanders taking on Tampa Bay. In Tampa Bay, let's hear. Are you excited, not excited for the Jake Daniels era? Let's hear.
I could talk about this game for probably an hour. Thank you for an hour. of things I think about this. And, I'm so excited for the Commanders. I think that the future is extremely bright. I love in, all caps what I've seen from Jaden Daniels so far. I think, he's going to be a superstar in the NFL. I think all the hype is true. I love what they've done with their other draft picks. I love Mike Sanders. So I love Johnny Newton. I think, the Commanders are really building something special here. They retained only 39% of their roster, which was the lowest in the NFL by a significant margin. And with that being said, I do not think the success starts in week one. I'm going to pick the Bucs over here as much as it pains me. I'm struggling to even say it. But I think, they've got some really glaring holes, specifically on the offensive line. And, some of that stuff can kind of be mitigated by really good quarterback play and like really fast time to throw. I think those are things Jaden Daniels does well, but I think they're going to struggle with some of the blitzes that, Todd Bowles is kind of throwing at them. And, additionally, I think they have a really large hole in the secondary at cornerback. And I think that, they're going to struggle against guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And, so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Bucs here. I think Jaden Daniels, will show some sparks. We'll see what we would like to see from him. But I like the Bucs here, something to the tune of about 24-20.
Wow. I'm surprised, Ned. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Commanders.
That's exciting. Well, I hope you're right.
We'll see. I mean, I think the Buccaneers, obviously, yes, they have. I would say like the Buccaneers are like the pinnacle of like average in this league. Like I don't think they're going to be a playoffs a playoff wrecker. I don't think they're going to be trash, but I just think they're not going to be anything crazy this year. And I think the Jaden Daniels explosiveness is going to get the Commanders a win here. I think maybe it'll be a close game, like you said, maybe a field goal or something like that. But I have a little bit of faith in what the Commanders are building, and I love the connection between Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. That's a big fantasy guy.
It has been good to watch so far, and I think that's. I came on here and I talked about Sam Howell a lot about maybe 16 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could talk for about double the time about Jaden Daniels and everything I love. I'll spare you guys for now. Maybe we'll do something mid-season, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, as a fan, I'm not trying to rush it. I've been a fan for, a little over the last decade. So it's been about, 12 years or so. And I think that when you have these large sweeping changes, coaching changes, GM changes, ownership changes, I will probably see an ownership change within the Commanders. I've already seen it once. I kind of doubt I'll see it another 2 times in my life. Like maybe I'll see one more ownership change. I think when those significant things happen, you got to really set the clock back to 0. You got to let the whole thing play out. But I love what the group has done so far. I love the people they've brought in, and I love what I'm hearing. And I think all the things I'm saying are not really hot takes. Like this is kind of being reverberated around the league. So I'm super excited to watch, and I'm not not too concerned with week 1, Jaden Daniels' first ever start, whether or not they beat a team that won a playoff game last year. It's okay if you don't beat the team that won really wrecked Eagles, in the first round last year. You were saying that I think the Buccaneers are average, but that was a darn good team down the stretch last year.
They definitely they got hot at the right time.
Yeah, so not too banged up over our week 1 matchup. Week 2 though with the Giants, that's a completely different story. I expect pretty good things out of that one. So we'll see. But yeah, on to Sunday Night Football here. I want to flip this on you. I'm going to introduce this one. I want you to after we get year 2 of Puka Nacua here versus a Lions team that I think should have gone to the Super Bowl last year. Really excited to hear what you think about this one, Grayson. Who do you got on Sunday night?
This is an exciting matchup. Obviously, Matt Stafford coming back into Detroit again, playoff rematch. And we saw the Lions get the best of the Rams in the playoffs last season. So I feel like a lot of people are going to kind of be like, oh, the Rams revenge game. They're going to come out with a win here. But I think the Lions come out and they're going to come out humming with this offense and an exciting free agent. They just got Tim Patrick. That's kind of gone under the radar for a long time. I just think injuries and things like that have kind of plagued his last few years. He's healthy going into the season. So week 1, I think he might have a little bit of a X factor, not obviously the game winner here, but I think he can add to this team. I think Jahmyr Gibbs has a big game and Amon-Ra St. Brown as usual. They're going to try to stop him, but I don't think they'll be able to. I'm going to go the Lions beating Matt Stafford in the dome.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you here. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions. I think one of my favorite things in the NFL is the draft and watching a team build through the draft. I think what the Lions did with their draft class last year was absolutely special. I mean, you talk about Gibbs, you talk about Campbell, you talk about Laporta, you know, you talk about Brian Branch. And I'm so excited to see year 2 of these guys. I think at least 2 of those 4 guys have Pro Bowl caliber years, whether that be Branch and Laporta or, you know, like Gibbs and Campbell. I think like it's a safe bet to say 2 of those guys have Pro Bowl years. And I think the Lions are going to come on really, really strong this year.
Yeah, it really reminded me of like the Saints draft however many years ago with Alvin Kamara, Marshawn Lattimore, and the whole gang. Like,
yeah,
it was very, very similar to me. Just like the Lions, they were kind of like getting there for however many years. The defense wasn't great, and then the defense got a little bit better last season. But the draft really just changed this team. And Dan Campbell, obviously, the culture that he's building over there is awesome to see. Sure. So I love what the Lions are building in Detroit. Ned, I'll flip it back on to you for this one. Monday Night Football, the Jets taking on the 49ers. Aaron Rodgers coming out and hopefully staying healthy for the first game of the year. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think the Jets have looked fairly good through the preseason. I really like what I saw, you know, and when I see clips of joint practices, you know, and as much as I'm not a huge fan of him, I do think Aaron Rodgers is back. I think he's in for a pretty good year. I'm not going to say great. I'm not going to say I think Aaron Rodgers does anything crazy like wins an MVP, but I think he's going to put in like a very solid year, and I think he's got a great team around him. I think Garrett Wilson is about to emerge as a top 5 wideout in the NFL. I think he's really, really good. And I think, again, this is one of those things where I'm saying he's going to emerge as top 5. I don't even think that's that hot a take. That, you know, with some great quarterback play and, you know, really well-placed footballs, that Garrett Wilson would be like elite. Like, I don't think that's that crazy. So, yeah. But despite that, I think I'm actually go with the 49ers here because I think they're a more sound football team that just played a little bit more recently, having played in the Super Bowl, having retained a lot of guys. I do think that one thing, if anything could, you know, sort of swing this game against the 49ers, it's the holdouts or hold-ins and holdouts, given that Trent Williams only got back in the building today and that Brandon Ayuk hadn't really taken any reps until the other day when he re-signed. And I think, like, if anything is going to mess it up with Brock Purdy and the chemistry, it could be that. But I don't know if that, you know, sort of catch up from 2 guys who have already played a lot with, you know, the rest of the team is really going to affect them in week 1. I think the 49ers are going to pull out a win here.
All right. I like what we said about, you know, kind of chemistry is going to dwindle a little bit with obviously those holdouts. Them coming back today, like or yesterday for when this episode comes out, or 2 days ago when this episode comes out. I'm going to go opposite again. I'm going to go another underdog. I'm going to go the Jets. I think Aaron Rodgers comes out with a little bit of a vengeance here, a little maybe a ayahuasca or something in his system. but no, I think the Jets I think they have a good defense. Obviously, that's going to be the biggest thing for them is if their defense can shut down the 49ers a little bit. But I love the receiver room in New York right now. Obviously, Garrett Wilson, yes, he's going to be explosive. Will likely be top 10. I don't know about top 5. I'm not going to go that far yet. But Mike Williams, as kind of a mentor guy, always has like a couple plays every game where he's like, wow, yeah. Like if he can stay healthy, he will have a few impact plays this year. But a guy that I think is going to go unnoticed before this game, that will be put on the map, is Malachi Corley. A guy.
Here we go. Yeah.
I love Malachi. The Yak God, they called him in college. I think they're going to use him kind of in that Debo role against the 49ers in this game. And I'm excited to see what he does. You see him like in pictures and stuff. He's jacked. He's huge. And he has great hands. He can adjust to any pass given to him. But Aaron Rodgers, obviously, you're not going to have to worry about that too much. But I think the Jets come away and steal a win away from the 49ers.
Yeah, I hope he just gets sufficient, you know, touches. I hope he sees the football enough, you know, because talking about this, they've got these, you know, other guys. Garrett Wilson is bordering on star territory. So I hope Corley gets enough opportunities. I am forgetting right now whether or not I had Corley on my top 10 wideouts when I came on the pod.
I want to say you did, but that
I know I talked about him though, because I was a huge fan of his work after the catch. I do think he plays football similar to Deebo Samuel. And one thing that I loved watching when Aaron Rodgers was on the Packers was just ways they'd manufacture touches for Devontae Adams. And I think like they might do that in a similar way for Malachi Corley. Not to say that he would see like an Adams workload, but to see that like in a manufacturing touches sort of situation where like they're throwing him these quick screens off the line because Aaron Rodgers' release is so fast, you know, where like it's one of those things where it's like you've got, a corner out there who's deeper than 6, and you're just like, let me just catch the snap and get it out there. I think Corley could see some touches like that. I think he'll also, sort of carry the ball a little bit as a runner. But yeah, super excited to watch Malachi Corley. I think I need to focus on trying to get him in some fantasy leagues.
Yeah, I think in like the late, like that's like a last round kind of pick because no one really knows about him, and a lot of people are just kind of overlooking him. So I like that as a late round pick. Do you have any other rookies, Ned? Before we wrap up the episode, you got any other rookies off the top of your head? I know I gave mine.
Yeah,
not from the Commanders was one of them. What are your thoughts on?
Sure. Yeah, Sinnott is. I think he's going to be good. I think that's a good selection. Do I have any other rookies? Sorry, you kind of caught me off guard here.
You're good.
I'm trying to think.
If not,
flipping right now. I think Brian Thomas is going to be pretty good. I'm a big fan of does that even count as a first round receiver? I don't really know, but pretty excited for Sinnott. I struggle because I want to say Commanders. I want to go ahead and start raving about Mike Sanders still and talking about how I think he can be just as good as Kenny Moore because that's someone who I think he plays a lot like. And yeah, I think he's going to be an impact player. But yeah, as far as like running backs, receivers go, I like Malachi Corley. I thought about Trey Benson a little bit, but I wasn't really I wasn't a big fan of his preseason performance. I thought he kind of struggled to hit gaps. But maybe a lot of these guys too are guys who are going to be really quiet through the first 6 weeks of the NFL season. Then as injuries sort of start to pop up, they get more reps, they get a little bit more comfortable. Some guys.
Oh no, I think just to let everyone know, I think so. Ned said his laptop before the episode was about 50%. So his laptop might have died here. But with that being said, those are our picks, guys. I apologize for wrapping it up short. I think this is a very exciting season. A lot of things are going to change in the NFL. I think a lot of these rookies coming in are really going to change the face. It's all over like Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. It's kind of like a rebirth of that with Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels coming in. Obviously, those are two of like the most common comparisons for the two guys, but I'm really excited for basically those guys to come in and just excel in the NFL. I really am. And I think Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels are going to change the course of their two respective teams. So I'm excited for this season. As usual, I have a pick'em group for you guys to join down below if you guys are interested. The winner will be getting a jersey. I'm excited to shout out the leaders every single week after week 1. So make sure to check that out down below. And as usual, if you like these episodes, like, comment, and subscribe. And check out all of our episodes on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts at Jenks and the Hammer Podcast. We will see you guys next week. And I'll think about doing possibly in the future weeks, obviously, because I'll be at the Saints game. I'll think about doing Saints recaps after the games. I'll see you guys next week.